I know that as a start to solving issues with bullying, many schools have adopted non-tolerance policies, but I've noticed that many schools aren't sure how to enforce these policies. For small private Christian schools, it's an issue of finding the line between second chances and endangerment of other students. For most schools, it's an issue of having enough proof of bullying. However, I think a large part of the issue is that kids have to rely on the adults to solve the problem after the fact. I think the solution is cultivating a strong peer mediation program with anti-bullying campaigns. This allows students to be a part of the social change in their school, and it's an opportunity to develop a sense of responsibility early on. I also feel that kids reach a certain age, specifically early teens, where adults telling them not to do something is not very convincing. However, many kids look to their peers, as we have discussed this semester, for validation or direction, in other words, peer pressure. So if they see their peers resolving a conflict with other students, or if a kid is told their behavior isn't appropriate by their peers, a social standard is set for what is and is not appropriate. I think that working on the same level of the issue among the students, rather than stooping down from the level of an adult to the student, would be more productive, and if nothing else, might result in more accounts of bullying being reported and documented. I think that this is part of a solution rather than continuing the same behavior patterns. What is peer mediation? It's the combination of the word mediation and peer, mediation being resolution of conflict by an outside source, and peer in this case being a fellow student. There are two types of peer mediation, the cadre approach and the total school approach. The cadre approach includes a handful of students being chosen as mediators and trained in peer mediation. Pros include it's the most used approach of the two, and it doesn't take out of as much vital class time. Cons include only students in elective classes tend to participate because it's usually scheduled during elective class time, limiting the number of mediators and when it can be scheduled. Then there's the total school approach, in which all students and staff are trained in peer mediation. Pros include all students have the skills to constructively handle conflict, and all students have the opportunity to be mediators. Cons include it takes time out of class, and if you hire a professional for training, then you have to spend money. How does a school go about implementing a peer mediation program? There are 4 steps. First, identify what problem exists in the school that peer mediation would help mitigate. Step 2, identify how it happened. Figure out the behavioral patterns that have taken place leading up to the initial issue. Step 3, identify the type of peer mediation that would most benefit your school. The cadre approach would benefit a smaller behavioral issue. So, for example, a small group of bullies, and the total school approach would benefit a whole school behavioral issue. Step 4, evaluate. How did the peer mediation program benefit the school's behavior as a whole, and did it help with the issue? Hillary Kremen, author of Peer Mediation, Citizenship and Social Inclusion in Action, provides an example of successful peer mediation. The Handsworth Association of Schools took 10 of its 30 schools and provided training for them on peer mediation. The schools that were most successful included characteristics of a staff that dedicated its time and effort to the program consistently, and schools who made the program a visible priority. And these schools were then able to continue the program years after it began. In order for peer mediation programs to be successful, money has to be spent on proper ongoing training for mediators and teachers, and the school has to be dedicated to making the program a priority. So, in conclusion, I feel that if peer mediation programs were successfully implemented in small private Christian schools in San Antonio, issues with bullying and behavior in general will not only be resolved but improved.